Excellent. Good evening, everyone. My name's Steve Keynes. I'm Director of Power Solutions at Public Power Solutions. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Welcome and thank you. We're going to be running through a presentation on the solar and battery proposal tonight for Burcot Farm. We're probably going to have some more attendees joining us, but it is 7 o'clock on the dot, so I will continue. We'd normally obviously meet in person for this kind of event, but due to current restrictions, we are holding an online consultation. The purpose really of tonight is to inform local residents and stakeholders about the solar and battery storage proposal at Burcot Farm, to answer any questions, to take comments. So we see this really as the start of the conversation with the local community and local stakeholders. So we're very, very keen to get views. We're actually undertaking this consultation prior to any planning application. So again, it's really important that we get your views in order to shape the proposal. There will obviously be future opportunities to make your views known during the formal process as well. I would say we do view comments and questions at this stage as absolutely crucial to us in shaping the proposals and addressing any local concerns. We therefore appreciate your comments, whether they're positive or negative, and I'd thank you for comments that have been made already, which you may well have received responses to already. I'd like at this point to introduce my colleagues. Chris will be taking us through the evolution of the scheme and the key benefits in a little while, and subsequently Alexis will talk through the planning aspects of the proposal, including the site selection process. In terms of the structure of this evening, the presentation will probably take around 30 to 40 minutes. You can ask questions at any point, but you may wish to wait until the end, as questions may be answered during the presentation. It's purely up to you. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the session. You can ask questions by clicking into the Q&A box at the top of the screen and typing and sending through your questions. Your question will then be published and put through to us. Just for noting, mics and cameras will be disabled for the duration of the presentation. I would say that both the webinar and the slide deck will be available online. And if there are any questions which you think of after the event, please feel free to email through. The presentation does contain a fair bit of information that you may want to kind of digest afterwards. After the session itself, all attendees will be sent a questionnaire, and we would ask you to fill that out. Again, we're very keen to get your views on the process, so would much appreciate that questionnaire being sent back speedily. So on with the presentation. Firstly, just a quick introduction to Public Power Solutions. We are a renewable energy development company. We work UK-wide, but we are wholly owned by Swindon Borough Council. So with that, we do bring the ethos of the public sector and community benefit with the focus and commerciality of the private sector. We do believe passionately in harnessing the benefits of clean energy for local communities and public service organisation, and we like to get things done in the way. Hence, early consultation with yourselves, getting community comments and questions. Our schemes bring genuine community benefits, including community funding pots for the entire lifetime of the development. And we've been doing this kind of development for a good while, over 6 years, and we have developed over 200 megawatts of solar and battery storage for both public sector and private sector landowners. That's just a bit about us. I just want to briefly run through the benefits of solar. Now, many will be aware that 2/3 of local authorities have declared a climate change emergency and recognise that practical action is needed to reach that target of net zero by 2050. Net zero is a really challenging target, and it effectively means that we're adding no more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere than is taken away. So it will mean much less reliance on fossil fuels, a reduction in air pollution. So it's a very challenging, a really quite challenging target. Solar presents a really cost-effective opportunity, operating viably and without subsidies to generate clean energy and keep energy costs low. There's also the co-benefits of biodiversity and grazing improvements and real community benefits that can go alongside solar as well. So that's solar. There are further benefits of associating battery storage with solar. The ability to store electricity increases the flexibility of when you can inject that energy into the grid at times when it's needed the most. So that flexibility is crucial with battery storage. Battery storage also helps keep the grid stable and operating optimally at the right kind of frequency as determined by the national grid. It's a very effective use of the grid connection in this location, so it does add that real element of flexibility to the actual development itself. Many people ask the question around environmental payback of solar, i.e. that's when the energy or the CO2 emissions that are generated during the manufacture or transportation are paid back by the benefit of the scheme in terms of energy generation. Now, there are a lot of studies in this area, and they do indicate a short environmental payback actually compared to the actual lifetime of the scheme, around 2 to 3 years. Notwithstanding that, PPS recognises that this is an evolving area, and we're very keen to keep up to date with this area of research so we can build it into our proposals. Okay, so the wider benefits of solar farms. In addition to the benefits of clean, cheap, renewable energy, solar arrays also provide a great opportunity to improve local biodiversity and provide financial support to community projects. So there are various layers to the benefits of a solar scheme. In terms of biodiversity gain, we can see improved grassland, hedgerow reinforcement, bird houses as key components, but there are others, and we've included a link in the presentation. So when that's circulated, you can see some research from the British Research Establishment on biodiversity within solar farms. Also, community funding is very close to our hearts. We also would provide a community fund paying out annually to help fund schemes of local importance over the lifetime of the scheme. And of course, we do like to see grazing happening on our schemes as that kind of continuation of sustainable agricultural use. Okay, I'd like to now hand over to Chris, who's going to take us through the evolution of the scheme and some of the key benefits.
Thank you very much, Steve, and hello all. My name is Chris Tucker and I'm the Head of Project Development at Public Power Solutions. I'm just going to give you an overview of the proposed solar developments at Burcot Farm. So a fundamental question you're probably all asking is, why has Burcot Farm been selected for this development? And there are some very good reasons why the site does lend itself to being particularly suitable. So really importantly, the site does have excellent access to a grid connection, and we've secured a grid offer to connect to the local electricity network operated by Scottish and Southern electricity networks. And a viable grid connection really is of the utmost importance, as many parts of the UK currently suffer from significant grid constraints, which demand costly reinforcement work and prohibit renewable projects from progressing. So we've determined that there was limited grid capacity available in the South Oxfordshire area, and the solar farm at Burcot can benefit from this. PPS has been through a thorough site selection process that's covered a very large area of South Oxfordshire. Within that, the Burcot site has shown to be an excellent opportunity that fits within our key criteria. So the site itself has very good natural screening from existing trees and hedgerows, which allows the visual impact of the development to be mitigated. So a number of preliminary surveys have taken place, particularly in respect to the ecological aspects, and those initial survey results have determined that the site is suitable for development. In terms of the proposed projects, we're looking to develop a solar PV and battery storage installation, just under 50 megawatts in capacity for each element. And we're proposing a community benefit fund of £250 per megawatt of solar per annum. So that's a total of £12,500 a year over the 40-year life of the project. Considering the site's recent historic use as sort of intensive farmland, we think there's a huge opportunity to increase the biodiversity of the sites and believe a minimum 80% biodiversity net gain can be achieved. And that biodiversity improvement will be achieved by improved grassland, reinforcement and reinstatement of historic hedgerows, the installation of bird and bat boxes, and the introduction of sheep grazing, which also retains an element of agricultural use on the site. So the completed development will provide a saving of around 13,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide a year, and it will provide an annual power output that's equivalent to the electricity consumption of around about 19,000 homes. So this slide gives a pictorial overview of the proposed development, and I'll highlight a few key points of interest. So the site boundary is marked with the dotted red line. And you'll note the existing footpaths to the southwest and southeast of the development, which are outside of the site boundary and with a significant buffer to the development. We're proposing the site access from the A415 to the south of the site. There are existing watercourses running north to south and also along the northern boundary of the site, which will be providing a minimum 10-metre buffer from the development. So we're proposing to retain all trees and hedgerows within the sites, and we're also proposing to reinstate historic hedgerows and develop the boundary hedgerows, which should be positive for both biodiversity and for screening. In terms of the technology, we are proposing to install bifacial panels on fixed mounting structures. Bifacial panels are a relatively new technology, and they're translucent in their design, which allows light to be absorbed on both sides of the panel, which increases their efficiency. And the battery storage is proposed to be of a lithium-ion chemistry, and the implementation of battery storage will really allow us to better balance the site's output with the local electricity demand. This slide is similar to the last, but shows the evolution of the site design to the proposal we have today. So firstly, and importantly, we've undertaken a planning pre-application with South Oxfordshire District Council and taken their initial advice to further engage with specialist consultants in a range of key areas such as ecology, heritage and landscape. So we initially considered development in areas to the southwest and the far north on the map here, which are hatched in pink. These areas have been discounted. The southwestern field impacted on the existing footpath and was in close proximity to Clifton Hampden, and the northern field was very open from public viewpoints and of a higher agricultural value. So we've moved the battery system from the north of the site to the east, nearby the industrial estate, which should minimise its visual impact and also improve operational access. The main installation method of the mounting structures will be via piling. However, the area shaded brown on this map denote where mounting structures will be fixed with a ballast to mitigate and safeguard areas of potential archaeological interest. Mindful of the water courses previously mentioned, we've increased that buffer in which equipment will be sited. And originally we were looking at access options from the B4015 to the west of the sites. However, we've now determined optimal access from the A415 for the construction activity. And we're proposing to take operational access via the existing industrial estate, which can be accessed by the 415 or the A4074. So as mentioned in a previous slide, we do seek to provide a community benefit of £12,500 per annum, which equates to £500,000 over the 40-year life of the project. So we are seeking feedback from the community as to how these funds can be deployed. But typically these type of funds are used for local community and environmental projects and benefit groups such as local sports clubs or schools, or to improve local facilities. In addition to the community benefit, the local council will be set to receive an income of approximately £200,000 an annum from business rates generated by the installation. And PPS have been developing solar PV now for around 7 years, and our previous projects have already generated approximately £180,000 worth of community benefits. We do have some examples here of how that community benefit money has been spent, and some of these examples include a community garden for dementia sufferers, a new gym, a rugby club, some conservation work, Hagbourne Copse, and a school eco playground. I think it's really important that how this fund is spent is wholly down to the local community. So this is an area we're particularly looking for your thoughts and feedback, and any thoughts on that would be gratefully received. So this slide provides some detail around the proposed construction of the solar farm at Burcot. The construction process itself is relatively straightforward and requires a minimal amount of concrete to be poured. Only approximately 5% of the land underneath the panels is disturbed. As mentioned already, the solar mounting structures will be fixed to the ground using either a pile-driven or ballast system. All the internal tracks within the site will be of a crushed and compacted stone type. The construction phase itself is expected to take approximately 6 months, with a peak of activity taking place over a 2 to 3 month period. And we've given thorough consideration and engaged a specialist consultant to detail a plan for the requirements of construction traffic. This plan includes details on the permitted routes for construction traffic, and that does exclude the conservation area of Clifton Hampden and also the B4015 that runs to the west of the site. I think it's very important to note that the site will be restored to its original condition at the end of the project. And there will be a clause within the lease to ensure that a decommissioning bond is put in place that allocates sufficient funding to undertake that restoration at the end of the project life. So at this point, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Alexis, who is going to give you some more detail on the planning considerations of the development.
Thanks very much, Chris, and good evening, everyone. In this section, I'm going to expand upon some of the planning considerations which have been taken into account to date. So, starting with the site selection and pre-application process, PPS has searched the whole of South Oxfordshire district to try to identify suitable sites for renewable energy development as part of our business objectives. We do plan to describe the site search identification process that we've undertaken to date in full within our planning application in order to fully explain how the site at Burcot has been derived. But to provide a bit more context, approximately 70% of South Oxfordshire is covered by either Greenbelt or Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty planning policy designations, and therefore the potential to accommodate renewable energy development on land outside of these designated areas is small. This is further limited by the fact that the principal locational requirement for renewable energy generation is proximity to a suitable point of connection to the grid. So within the whole of the South Oxfordshire district, the only local substation with capacity for schemes to connect to is situated at the northern boundary of the district alongside Oxford City. And this lack of available grid capacity has significantly limited the area of search available within the district boundary of South Oxfordshire as a whole. Once the area of search has been defined, we then perform a sequential analysis to identify preferable areas for development. And it's at this point that we start to include the other relevant planning considerations, including whether there is land situated outside of the Greenbelt and with less agricultural value. On the basis of the search process which we've undertaken, we demonstrate that there are no other suitable alternative sites situated outside of the Greenbelt or at a lower grade agricultural land. As I've said, we will be presenting the full detail of the site finding exercise within the application itself, and I'd be happy to answer any further questions on that process. So once we've found a suitable site, we then engage other professionals to perform some initial survey work to appraise the potential suitability in further detail. And it's at this point that we start to really take into account the site-specific considerations. At Burcot, this has included appointing a landscape architect and ecology professionals at an early stage in the process. The findings of these initial independent assessments have indicated the site is worthy of progression and has also allowed us to identify the opportunity to deliver significant landscape enhancements and ecological benefits at this location. One of the other key benefits at this site is farm diversification. The site forms part of a much wider land holding extending to over 750 acres. The landowner is a fifth generation farmer and proposes to pass the farming business on to his son. Large-scale changes to agricultural economic policy are currently in progress, and it's particularly important time to try and mitigate and manage these changes. The development will provide a significant opportunity to sustain the wider farming operation against this backdrop. And at this point, I would also like to emphasise that the development of solar PV does not establish any other permanent use rights which can be used to justify other development types at this location in the future, and that solar farm development is subject to a temporary planning permission, and the full decommissioning and restoration of the site will be required as part of a planning condition attached to any planning permission. As Chris has mentioned previously, we have engaged in extensive early pre-application engagement with relevant consultees to date. The important next stage of the pre-application phase is to engage the local community to capture local comments and considerations at this early stage and incorporate these within the design evolution and the content of our planning submission. The engagement that we are undertaking at this point provides a genuine opportunity to provide comment at this early stage and point out to things which we might have missed. This really does give us the best chance of being able to integrate any comments within the scope of the planning application supporting studies and the further evolution of the design. Consequently, we really do encourage and welcome comments and feedback to be made at this stage. As Steve has said, positive or negative, it is the best stage in the process for us to take local opinion, comments and considerations on board. So moving on to the content of the planning application, this slide shows the draft list of planning application documents which we intend to submit. I think you'd be pleased to know that I don't intend to run through this list in detail, but the point I would like to highlight is that we adopt a detailed approach to the content of our planning applications, and I'll be happy to answer any questions on the proposed content at the end of this presentation or in follow-up emails. In this case, the ecological considerations have been key, and the application will include a landscape and ecological management plan, the implementation of which will be secured by planning condition. This document will detail the proactive management measures that are required to deliver the biodiversity benefits identified and secure this objective throughout the lifetime of the scheme. We also intend to maximise the delivery of environmental benefits to include consideration of soil carbon sequestration, and we will be reporting these measures in the soil carbon and management plan, which will form part of the submission. We'll also be presenting the agricultural diversification benefits mentioned previously and an independently prepared agricultural appraisal, which will provide the full detail of this benefit. The landscape and visual impact assessment will include verified photo montages, which will show how the scheme will appear both immediately after construction and at a stage when the additional planting proposed has become established, in order that the local community has a full appreciation of how the scheme will appear within the landscape throughout the duration of the scheme. So for the purposes of this community consultation, we have requested that the landscape architect prepare some initial photo montage images based upon the draft layout. And we've selected 2 viewpoints for these photo montages, which show the potential views from the public rights of way, which exist to the southwest and southeast of the site. We've selected these viewpoints because we thought that these were the closest to the site and of most community interest at this stage. So moving on to the images themselves. The images, just in terms of how these images are presented, they are actually a panorama. So the top image they should be arranged horizontally, basically. So, but we could not fit that on the page. So This image shows the views that are achievable from the footpath between Clifton Hampden and Croft Cottages. And this is the existing view without any solar panels. We have obtained wintertime photography for all of our landscape and visual impact assessment work, which represents the worst case scenario when the trees aren't in leaf. So moving on to the next panorama, this shows the appearance of the scheme from this location at the end of the first year of construction. So the planting's being put in place, and this is the growth after a year. And you can see that the already kind of distant views from this viewpoint have started to be filtered out a bit more. And then after 15 years, you can see that the woodland belt is expected to fully screen views of the panels, and the enhanced planting along the eastern boundaries has also become established to screen the potential for views from this aspect. So moving on to the second viewpoint selected, this shows the view towards the site from the public footpath to the east. Again, the first image that we're looking at shows the extent of the existing screening adjacent to the eastern boundary. And after the first year of construction, you can see that glimpse views of the panels are visible, but they are not prominent within the scene. And then after 15 years, we would expect that the additional planting proposed will be almost fully screening any views achievable of the panels. Finally, South Oxfordshire District Council and Oxford County Council have adopted ambitious targets regarding the climate emergency and in response to the requirements of the Climate Change Act. And South Oxfordshire District Council aiming to become a carbon neutral district by 2030, which is a very ambitious target. So the site selection process has highlighted that the ability to deliver renewable energy within the district is constrained as existing by grid capacity and the planning constraints that affect the district. We're aware of the scheme currently in planning to the north of this site, but we have not identified any other solar PV development proposals as forthcoming within the area of search at this time. The proposed development would therefore provide a significant opportunity to deliver renewable electricity amounting to 7% of the annual total electricity consumption of SODC. The contribution that this scheme would make to the targets adopted within the district, as well as national targets, would therefore be significant. In terms of next steps, we propose to integrate your comments at this stage to evolve the layout and design and inform the content of the planning application moving forwards. The next opportunity for consultation will arise when the request for an environmental impact assessment, screening and scoping opinion is issued to South Oxfordshire District Council. We anticipate that this will be made at the end of the month. And there will be further opportunity to engage with the process at the planning application submission stage, which is expected to occur in August this year. In conclusion, we really welcome and encourage your input at this phase in the project with any feedback at all, as this really does offer us the best opportunity to consider your views and integrate them within the planning application. Thanks very much.
Great, thanks Alexis and Chris. So hopefully that gives everybody a good kind of overview of the scheme at Burcot Farm that we are proposing. There are just a few kind of frequently asked questions before we dive into the questions that have been asked via the web chat. So security has come up as an issue, and in particular the potential for lighting at the site. So we would highlight that it's CCTV cameras using infrared technology will be used, so no lighting at the site at all. The site will be enclosed with an appropriate rural deer fencing kind of curtilage positioned inside the hedgerows and the trees to the boundary of the site. So again, a low impact. Noise is obviously come up as a question. We would say that electricity is generated by panels without vibration. there is the elements associated with noise are the inverters or the air conditioning for the batteries. They are located sensitively away from the edge of the solar farm, and in particular the battery is located to the west of the small industrial estate at Burcot farm, with a focus on minimising any kind of noise issues. I would say that a comprehensive noise assessment, as Alexis has said, will accompany any planning application and give people the opportunity to dive into the detail there. Will there be glare from the panels? Solar panels are actually designed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and they have been deployed in sensitive locations like major roads and airports, with no glare issues reported. But again, in the same vein as noise, there will be a detailed glint and glare report that accompanies a future planning application. In terms of what happens at the end of the solar farm's life, Chris has mentioned this. A condition will be applied to the scheme for all panels and equipment to be removed and to return to agricultural use. And reinforcing that will be a condition or an element within the lease to ensure that a bond is available to make that happen from a financing perspective. Okay, so those are just some of the frequently asked questions. I'd firstly like to thank everybody thank everyone for attending before we move into the Q&A session, and just remind you that there will be a questionnaire that's sent to you, and obviously you can download all the details from today as well and contact us on the details at the bottom of the slide. So shall we move into the Q&A?
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everybody. I'm Jo. I'm looking after the questions and pressing buttons behind the scenes. So thanks, everyone, for attending, and thanks for all the questions. We've got quite a few. So the first one is, what is the projected life of the solar farm, and what guarantee is there that it will be returned to agricultural at the end of the period? I think we've covered it, but it might be nice to confirm that. Chris, are you okay to answer that one?
Pick that one up, Jo. So it's a 40-year asset life for the solar PV development, and yes, the land will return to agricultural use at the end of that, and that'll be built into the planning and the condition of the lease as well.
That's great, thank you. Chris, might want to pick this one up as well. Why here? Why Burcot Farm? What makes this site better than the others you've considered?
Yeah, so I hope we've covered that in the presentation, but just sort of to reiterate that predominantly we do require that grid connection at a sort of viable cost, and we can achieve that at Burcot. And within the site selection process, we've looked at a very wide area of South Oxfordshire, and we use a number of key criteria really to define sites, and Burcot does fall within that. And of course, as well, we do have a landowner who is looking to diversify his own business as well, and sees this as a potential opportunity to do that. So I think all those factors together mean that Burcot does look like a viable opportunity for us.
Thank you very much. Does the clean energy stay local, or is it sold on the wholesale market?
Yeah, well, I think I can answer a few more of these at the same time, actually, within this question. So the grid connection is back at Cowley local substation, and we propose to connect back to Cowley local substation via an underground cable for the entire route. The connection is at 33 kilovolts, and that's on the main bus bars of that substation, and then the power is transferred back to the Berensfield primary substation and distributed locally. So yes, there is definitely an element of local consumption within the solar that will be generated.
Thank you very much. How will the battery work in tandem with the solar farm, or will the battery mainly be optimising in the wholesale market separately to the solar farm?
So the battery will be co-located with the solar farm, so they'll be directly connected to each other electrically, and the battery will be able to charge from the solar generation and dispatch that power at optimum times, which is most likely a period of sort of 4 to 7 in the evening time.
Thank you very much. Might be the next question for Alexis. Oxfordshire's 2050 strategic plan and evidence base identifies this area as not suitable for solar renewable energy installations. Why is Swindon Borough Council pitting itself against South Oxfordshire District Council local government?
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, there is a kind of a national need for renewable energy development that's recognised. This is also reflected at the local level within the district of South Oxfordshire District Council. As part of the pre-application discussions that we've had to date, we have gone through the policy kind of basis and grounding in detail, and we have and nothing has been presented to us that would preclude or specifically inhibit the development of solar at this site.
Thank you very much. Back to Chris. I've got a question about the community fund. Is the community fund worth £12,500 over 40 years? And then there's a comment that is £312 per annum. I'm not sure.
Yep,
I'm reading that correctly.
Yep. Just to clarify that point, so that's £12,500 per annum over 40 years, which is a total of £500,000.
Okay, that's great, thank you. I think we've got another question about the benefit fund. If we move down, who would get the benefits? The local parish council?
So I think certainly with regards to previous installations, that is a common method for sort of administration of the funds. And again, that could be the case at Burcot. But I think what we're really looking for is some feedback on that and get a feeling from the local community as to how those funds can best be deployed.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Will the site be embedded in the distribution network?
Yes, the site will be connecting to the electricity network at 33,000 volts.
Okay, thank you. I have got a question here I can probably answer myself. Why do you call this a consultation when you do not allow us to state our opinions? We haven't switched your mics and cameras off. It's the system we're using to allow for an unlimited number of attendees. That functionality isn't available, so that's why we're having the Q&A. So apologies if you did want to speak. We haven't switched it off. It's just not available for this meeting. So apologies for that. So if we move on,
just to chip in on that, Joe, as well.
Yeah.
Sorry. Of course, I think that we are allowing people to state their opinions. Obviously, you're able to put a comment through directly here. Alternatively, you can email Public Power Solutions directly, and that will go through to one of the team. And we're very happy to speak to people directly about their feedback. There'll be feedback forms as well. So we really are hoping that there is the opportunity for people to air their views.
Thanks for that, Chris. So going back to the battery storage, I was a little confused what the battery storage is where the battery storage I think is going to be located. Is it in the middle of the site or at the top?
I'll take that one. So just to clarify, the original design, we were thinking in the far north of the site, but the current design and the plan which we intend to put forward has the battery storage located on the eastern side of the site, as we think that gives it the best screening and also best distance from residential.
Thank you very much. Will there be pylons, and if so, where exactly will they go?
No, there won't be any pylons at all. So the connection back to the substation will be entirely with an underground cable.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Chris, these are all for you at the moment. Which body holds the restoration fund to ensure its guarantee? Is it like escrow for software lodged with an independent third party with no material interest, or connection with any of the parties involved in the construction or implementation or operation of the solar utility?
Very good question. It is with a third-party escrow, so the asset owner will have no access to those funds, so they will be available at the end of the asset's life.
Thank you very much. You mentioned construction access via existing industrial estate. Do you mean Burcot Farm?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So there is an existing industrial estate at Burcot Farm, so that is what I'm referring to. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Apart from South Oxfordshire area, since your company is wholly owned by Wiltshire Local Authority, please explain the search process in that county.
Okay, so yeah, Public Power Solutions are owned by Swindon Borough Council. That is a separate local authority to Wiltshire, but I can go into just a quick overview on our sort of site search process, and that really does cover the whole of the UK. So we have looked across really areas covering sort of UK power networks, Scottish Southern Electricity Networks, Western Power Distribution, so sort of covering the whole south of the country, and then right up to Electricity North West, Northern Power Grid as well, in the north of the country. So we are looking across the whole of the country at the moment. In terms of the site selection process, first and foremost, we do look for areas where we think we can achieve a viable grid connection. And then after that, we are looking at high-level planning constraints, which we think are going to prohibit development, such as areas of outstanding natural beauty, for instance. And then beyond that, there's some further criteria as well. But yeah, that's a very quick overview on the site selection process, but it is UK-wide.
Okay, thank you for that. Why can't you use brownfield sites? You say we live in an area where there is a large amount of greenbelt, but there is still a significant amount of brownfield available.
Yeah, I would love to develop on brownfield if we could find a suitably sized site available with an interested landowner. Unfortunately, that opportunity hasn't arisen. But yeah, certainly brownfield development, I think, presents itself as a very good opportunity for renewable energy deployment. Unfortunately, the opportunity hasn't arisen here.
Thank you. I support alternative energy sources, but we are already facing 30,000 new homes in South Oxfordshire. Why should we welcome further development, particularly on greenbelt land? Why not search for brownfield sites? That's similar.
Yeah, so we do search for brownfield sites, and we would develop on brownfield where available.
Thank you. I had understood that South Oxfordshire District Council wanted to keep a clear distinction between Burcot and Clifton Hampden. How have you persuaded them that this is no longer a relevant factor?
That one for you, Alexis.
Yeah, okay, so we are located within the greenbelt. Inappropriate development is restricted within the greenbelt. Solar farm development is a form of inappropriate development within the greenbelt, but there is allowance for this type of development when you can demonstrate very special circumstances. And one of the acknowledged very special circumstances relates to renewable energy and the contribution that renewable energy electricity generation makes to the wider environmental benefits, really. So there are a lot of factors that need to be considered, but they are considered on a case-by-case basis. So our starting point is to assess the kind of baseline level of harm that could arise at this location, and then start to see what benefits are achievable that could outweigh that potential for harm. So because of the extent of the natural screening that exists at this location, and various other factors, we do think that this site is, and the development of this site is compatible with maintaining the purposes of the greenbelt. As I say, it's going to be a temporary form of development. It will be fully reversible, and the land will be fully restored in the future. And we do have this opportunity to deliver this significant biodiversity net gain. a biodiversity net gain figure of a minimum of 80%, and we would like to achieve in excess of that. So that's a benefit that we really think is counts in favour of the development at this location. We've also got the farm diversification benefits, and we've also got the opportunity to provide landscape enhancements by reinstating those historic hedgerows, and we've looked in detail at the kind of landscape recommendations and management plan for this area, and we think that we can enhance the appearance of the site, which will be of benefit to the future. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Alexis. Okay, none of PPS's current solar farms seem to be anywhere near residential housing, nor on agricultural land, former landfill sites, low-grade farmland, next to a business park, etc. And this is also the case for all the other sites run by other companies in Oxfordshire, disused airfield, brownfield sites, etc. Why choose a site that affects the quality of life and the visual landscape of two villages, encroaches on the greenbelt, and has a hugely negative effect on the character of the area?
Do you want me to pick that up, Joe? So PPS have developed sites already on agricultural land, and I think there's quite a few other instances of solar development in Oxfordshire as well on greenfield land, agricultural land. So I don't think we are going to be negatively affecting the character of two villages. I think in terms of the Burcot site itself, it does have limited views from publicly accessible viewpoints, and there is significant screening already. And there is also plans within a development to enhance that screening. And I think there's things we can do on the site to actually improve some elements as well, in terms of restoration of the historic hedgerows and improving the biodiversity as well. So I think there's some positives to be had in there for sure.
Thank you. Okay, are you aware that Burcot has no representation at parish council level? I am concerned our voices would not be heard. Is that for Alexis?
I would on that point. I think that I would encourage you to get in contact with the parish councillors. That even if they're not from Burcot itself, I'm sure that they would be interested to hear your views and make sure that they're taken into account by the parish council as part of their consideration of this scheme. So please do engage with your local representatives, and I would hope that they would. I'm sure that they would seek to represent the whole of the parish of Burcot and Clifton Hamden.
That's great, thank you. What are your target timescales here should your application be successful? When are you hoping that construction would start and be complete? That one's for Chris, please.
Yeah, so we would anticipate that construction would start in approximately a year, and the site would most likely be completed and energised probably by September 22. Quite high level timescales that, but that'd be the best estimate at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Lithium batteries are comparatively new technology. What do you know about the safety of the battery facility you are intending to build?
Yeah, they are comparatively new, but I think lithium ion is becoming quite well established now. Obviously, we do find significant amounts of lithium ion in our consumer electronics, in our mobile phones, our laptops, and also I certainly hope as well that we're going to be seeing a significant advent of lithium ion in electric vehicles as well. So we will be undertaking a specific risk assessment as part of the development around the battery storage, and we'll be using that to engage with the local fire departments. But I mean, the battery units themselves do benefit from many safety features, I mean, such as detailed monitoring systems and also inbuilt fire suppression systems. So I'd have a good level of confidence that that'd be well mitigated.
Thank you very much. So the next question, similar, have been asked and supported by lots of people attending. So the 12,500 per annum benefit to our parish council is insignificant. Could we think of some greater benefits both to the council and to houses, for example, free energy?
I think if there's some feedback to be had in terms of what exactly we could provide instead of that community benefit, that would be gratefully received. The 12,500 I think probably is a significant contribution to local parish, and I think we've sort of demonstrated that there have been some really good things that community benefit funds from previous PPS developments have been spent on. So yeah, feedback well received on that point.
Okay, thank you very much. How close are the panels to Croft Cottages?
Approximately, I think 80 metres is the distance.
Thank you. Has South Oxfordshire asked you to source locations?
No, South Oxfordshire have not had any input into the site selection process.
Okay. I have heard a rumour recently of a major development at the Golden Ball. Are you aware of this?
Not aware of any developments at the Golden Ball, no.
Just adding into that as well, Chris, we have had early engagement with the highways consultees at Oxfordshire County Council, and they haven't mentioned that there would be any impact of our scheme on anything that they're proposing in the future in the vicinity of the site.
Excellent, thank you, Alexis.
Thank you for that. Next question. I live 100 metres from Burcot Farm. Will I hear noise from the battery installation?
No, the noise from the battery installation should be negligible at a distance of about 100 metres. What we are doing is undertaking a detailed noise assessment from the battery storage site, and that will sort of demonstrate noise levels from certain distances of the installation. So any noise assessment will be accompanying the planning application.
Okay, thank you. Regarding glint and glare, is there an effect on birds who could mistake them for water and crash into them? Do you want to take that one, Alexis?
Yeah, sure. So we will be preparing a glint and glare study as part of this application, and we have engaged ecologists to fully appraise the potential impacts of the panels on birds. As far as I'm aware, this there was a kind of early concern about the potential impact for birds mistaking the solar panels for water, but my understanding is that there hasn't been much evidence that has demonstrated this, and this would mainly be a consideration where birds that generally live on the water would be in proximity to solar farm installations. So our inland application site, we don't anticipate this to be a problem at this stage, and this is not a risk that has been highlighted to us by our ecological consultants.
Thank you very much. Would the farm's lifetime community benefit fund be payable as a one-off lump sum? The community is currently seeking funding for a new doctor's surgery.
So I think looking at the community benefit as a lump sum is a bit of a tricky one, because obviously the site won't have generated any revenue at all. So it's quite a big capital expenditure at the outset of the project, but I will take that one away, and we will see what we can do about that one.
That's great, thank you. What is deer fencing? Is that to stop deer? What happens to the existing deer on the site? Do you want that one, Chris or Alexis?
So the deer fencing, yeah, is to stop deer getting onto the site, because they're not compatible, frankly, with the solar panels. So yeah, no deer.
Just to add on that, we will be including gaps within the deer fencing to allow permeability through the site by smaller smaller mammals. So that will be part of the ecological consideration of the design, and the ecologists will be feeding into us on that point.
Thank you very much. How wide will the margins be? What native species will you be planting?
If you can just bear with me a second on this, I shall make sure I can report the right information. In terms of the grassland, we would be looking to deliver a species-rich grassland mix across the site. So we're going to go for this particular site that's been intensively farmed, and it's quite a kind of a rich soil as existing. We're going to be going for 80% grasses and 20% wildflower mix, with substantial boundary buffer zones adjacent to the site and through the site as well, where we've got the hedgerow planting being introduced. In terms of the hedgerow planting, we'd be looking for native British hedgerow species to really maximise the potential for biodiversity. These are going to include hawthorn, blackthorn, spindle, honeysuckle, hazel, elder. So they will be a kind of, and that's just a few of the species. So they will be quite a species rich mix of planting across the site. And then we'd also be taking into account specific species mitigation. So we will be, well, we're still in the process of doing breeding birds surveys, so there'll be suitable mitigation for skylark. We can increase foraging habitat for badger. The change of use from the existing intensive arable use to permanent grassland will provide opportunities for reptiles. We're looking to improve the existing areas of woodland on the site by removing rhododendron and improving the potential benefits for badgers in the woodland belt, which we know are there extensively around this area. Other mammals which would benefit from our proposal include hare, so that would be a good increase in potential habitat for them, and invertebrates would also benefit from the permanent grassland. So we do think there will be kind of habitat benefits in terms of diversifying the species, and also benefits for species as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, can you clarify where the access to the site will be? Will construction traffic use Burcot Farm Lane?
No, construction traffic won't use Burcot Farm Lane. Construction traffic will access the site directly from the A415.
Thank you. I think we might have touched on this before. Were any other sites considered?
Yes, lots of other sites were considered in a very wide area around South Oxfordshire. We did contact quite a few landowners. We did have some discussions with other people, and which didn't progress for whatever reason. So yes, there's been a wide search area around South Oxfordshire.
Thank you. There is an archaeological site, an unexcavated Roman villa. How will this be treated?
Yeah, there is some archaeological interest at the site. We have engaged his heritage consultant to start to appraise this impact at an early stage. So this has involved undertaking a full geophysical survey of the site to give us a really good understanding of exactly what's there. It was a little bit more extensive than we were anticipating, to be honest, but one of the main benefits of solar farm development is that it does provide the opportunity to preserve these remains in situ. It's a very well established form of construction. Solar farm can be developed on landfill sites. It's one of the few development types that can be accommodated on landfill, and the reason it can be accommodated at those types of locations is because it can be constructed fully on the surface without the need for any ground intrusion whatsoever. So we are in ongoing dialogue with the consultee at Oxford County Council at the moment to make sure that that they are happy with our proposals to fully preserve the archaeological interest at the site in situ. So our proposal at the moment would be to just incorporate areas of the site where the panels would be mounted fully on the ground and all of the associated infrastructure. And we will be conducting any further investigations that are required by the consultee at Oxford County Council to make sure that they are satisfied with our approach. But it's quite common for archaeological interest to be beneath fields at solar farms. Of course, the farm land as existing is being ploughed as part of the intensive agriculture. We do think that the solar farm, once it's been established, would actually be potentially less damaging to those archaeological remains than the existing uses. So I think it does provide a good opportunity actually to continue the ongoing preservation.
Thank you very much. Next one's for you as well, Alexis. Would the existing mature trees and hedgerows on the site be retained and protected throughout construction?
Yeah, everything's going to be retained. There are a few mature trees across the site, so they are in the process of being fully assessed by arboricultural consultants, and we will have an arboricultural method statement and tree management plan to make sure that the existing hedgerows and trees are protected both during the operational phase and the construction phase as well. So this will be fully considered.
Thank you very much. One for you, Steve, please. Why push this online consultation, excluding many with Microsoft Teams and not notifying 20 Burcot residents? A public consultation should have been held post-lockdown. So if I can just acknowledge the 20 residents that didn't receive their postcards, I do apologise. We did mail out to 2,000 addresses and it should have included those 20. I don't know why you didn't receive your postcards, but I did write you all letters, which I hope you received as soon as I was notified, but I do apologise that you were missed out initially. Steve, can you answer the rest of that question, please?
Yeah, I certainly can, Jo. Thank you for that. So obviously we're under some restrictions at the minute in terms of communication. We would much rather be with you, talking face to face, obviously. But we're working through Teams and trying to access as many people's opinion as possible. As Jo has said, we've advertised this session. We've had extensive postcard drops of 2,000 people, and we've actually hand delivered letters just to ensure that some of the residents nearby definitely did actually receive notification. What we will do, we're determined to engage with people who want to comment. So that's we're really trying our best to do that. What we will do is follow up on the 20 residents that weren't contacted in the first instance, and elicit their opinions. What I mentioned at the beginning, this is the start of the conversation. So we don't want to close down any conversations. We want to keep this conversation moving forward. But we certainly will be going back to the 20 residents who were missed out to identify their opinions and plumb their opinions into the process.
Thank you, Steve. That's great. So the next question, before this goes to planning, will you give us a full picture of the financials, capital and budget and breakdown of benefits? Do you want to take that one, Chris?
Yes, can do, Jo. Thank you. I don't think we'll be able to do that because there's an awful lot of there's an awful lot of confidential and sensitive information within that. So I don't think we'll be able to provide all of that full information, but we are developing this solar farm subsidy free, so margins are significantly tighter than compared to the feed-in tariff days.
Thank you. What are the benefits to the District Council in business rates of existing diversification on Burcot Farm currently?
You're on mute, Chris.
Cheers, Steve. I think the benefits to the local authority in the business rates is obviously money that they can receive, which goes directly into providing frontline services. So I think that's really separate from the diversification of the farmyard business, because the landowner at Burcot Farm does farm a significantly wider area. So the diversification of income does allow that business to be maintained for a much longer period of time. So I think there's two separate points there.
Thank you. Are the panels shown in the slides the same as the double-sided panels mentioned in the presentation?
I'll pick that one up, Joe. So the bifacial panels look incredibly similar to sort of standard monocrystalline panel. So there's very little difference in appearance.
Okay, thank you. We have no parish councillors representing Burcot, so it would not be sensible to let the parish council administer any funds.
That's a comment that we can take on board. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. What brownfield sites have been considered?
As part of the site search identification process, we've considered all brownfield sites across the district.
Thank you. You say you give us the opportunity to add views, but what are you doing with them? Is there any opportunity to change the plans? Don't know who wants to answer that one.
I think it's a good question, and it's why we're engaging very early on in the process. This is the first opportunity to really engage with the local community. And I think I would highlight that we're doing this at an early stage and taking on board comments to really shape the direction of the project. So we will be taking away all comments made tonight. We've got obviously, the details of questions that have been asked previously, and they will be considered in the next iteration of the design of the proposal.
Thank you, Steve. What is the assumed volume of poured concrete, 5% total area required, and how many vehicle movements does this represent?
So the 5% doesn't relate to poured concrete. That just relates to the area disturbed under the panels. So that includes for piling and for the ballast as well. I mean, in terms of the poured concrete, we're literally talking about an area here which is going to be approximately sort of 20 by 20 square meters, really, probably less than that. So it does represent an incredibly small area of the overall development.
Okay, thank you very much. Next couple for you, Steve, please. So on using Microsoft Teams, how many attendees are there? We use Teams for 100+ participants. And the next one as well, how many attendees are there today? We will need to have consultation meetings where we and PPS can hear local residents' voices, and we and PPS can hear the strength of local opinion, either for or against the proposal. This format is obviously heavily weighted towards hearing PPS's views.
I think this format is, in my opinion, heavily weighted towards getting the opinions of local residents into the process, so we can really hear it and act on it. So I think we've got, like I said previously, we're taking note of everything that's said today. There's no restriction on what people can say or email in or call us. So we are here to take those comments. We will be we'll be talking with the parish councils, the various parish councils in the local area, and we're very happy to talk with anybody who wants to make their opinion known to us. So that's certainly not a constraint from our perspective.
Thank you, Steve. When you say that traffic will not go through the conservation area, do you intend to bring traffic through Clifton Hampden along the A415?
Yes, we do, yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, just a comment. I think Burcot Farm is hardly an industrial estate. We'll take that on board. Thank you. You claim to be national, but every site on your website is in Wiltshire. Where else have you developed? Steve, would you like to answer? Oh, sorry, Chris.
Sorry, I'm already on the go there, Jo.
Okay.
So yeah, historically, the sites have been focused around the Swindon area, but at the moment we're also developing a site down in Devon, and I am in Yorkshire next week. So yeah, we really are national.
Thank you very much. Apart from 12,500 per annum being an insignificant amount, will this not even increase over the years to keep up with the inflation? 500k in 40 years' time will be even more insignificant. Free energy for the surrounding houses would be a great compensation.
So I believe the community payment does include for inflation, so that 500k was sort of a simple calculation, but yeah, it is subject to inflation. I mean, in terms of the free energy for the surrounding area, I suppose it is quite hard to draw a line there if you're going to provide that. That I think is something we can take away and have a think as to how that might possibly work. But my initial impression would be that would be incredibly hard to administer.
Thank you very much. There is already a solar farm in Berensfield, only a mile from here.
There is, yeah, 5 megawatts at Wally Corner.
Okay, if approved, would PPS manage the site for the duration? Other local sites have been sold, for example, to pension funds.
Very good question. So previously, PPS have developed sites which have been owned by our parent company, Swindon Borough Council. We've also developed sites which have been owned by other local authorities, and we've also developed sites which have gone into community ownership. That is certainly our preference, to facilitate investment through local authorities or through the community. But we have also developed sites as well which have gone into private ownership, so that is also an option. PPS do offer an end-to-end service, so PPS are involved in the sort of asset management and ongoing operation maintenance of existing solar sites. So that could be an option. At the moment, that hasn't yet been determined.
Thank you very much. Sorry, if PPS is PPS aware that there is locally another solar farm? Fortunately, the community developments have yet to be enjoyed there. Will there be a legal contract to ensure the community benefit is made available?
Yes, there will, and there have been discussions about inserting a clause into the lease to ensure that the community benefit is made.
Thank you very much. Why have you located solar panels so close to Croft Cottages but left the land and views in front of Burcot Farmhouse, owned by the landowner clear?
So I think we can take on board the comments about the solar panels being in close proximity to Croft Cottages, and I think it is fair to say that we'll be reviewing the design around that particular area to see if we can sort of mitigate the impact a little bit further.
Thank you. Your proposed development combined with the Berensfield and Culham new housing development will massively change the landscape of this area. We also have an NDO in discussions to develop on Greenbelt land at Clifton Hampden. At what point is all this development in a small area too much?
We will be taking into account other development in the area as part of appraising the potential for impact at this site. Obviously, there is a bit of the schemes proposed do have to be quite well progressed. So other schemes coming forward at a later date will have to consider the impact of our proposal, just as we consider the impact of existing and future development where information is available and where these schemes have progress to a substantial stage.
Thank you. Was the disused airfield site considered or rejected as it is currently left as grassland, unused by the landowner, and must be comparable in size to the proposed Burcot plan?
Does this refer to the disused airfield at Culham? I mean, if so, I believe Culham's a government site, and there's some potentially sensitive activity that is taking place on there at the moment. So we do work with a number of central government organisations actually, who are looking to progress their own solar ambitions on some quite significant land holding. There are some issues within central government in terms of third parties developing on their property. I mean, at the moment, it's not really something that's been done. So for us, developing there wasn't actually an option.
Thank you. One back to Alexis. You keep talking about biodiversity net gain. What about the current biodiversity?
Yeah, this is the calculation of biodiversity net gain. The first step is to appraise the baseline habitat value. So we've done that. Because the site is intensively farmed as existing, there's not a lot of biodiversity value associated with the kind of fields themselves. Most of the interest is confined to the kind of boundaries and the mature trees and other features that exist on the site. So yeah, we do take that into account, really, the baseline, in order to calculate how we're going to deliver and actually quantify the net gain.
Thank you very much. The next one's for you as well. Why do your plans not show the houses on the road between Golden Balls and Clifton Hampden?
I think we have used quite a high level base layer at the moment. It has been picked up by people in comments that have been issued prior to this consultation. We will be using a more detailed baseline as part of the presentation of the scheme in the future, but also just to reassure everybody that detailed baseline maps are actually being used for the purpose of the appraisal, even though they've not been used in terms of the presentation. In terms of the detailed analysis of the impacts, all of the housing in the area and in the vicinity of the site will be taken into account, as well as any other potential sensitive receptors.
Thank you very much. How many brown belt sites were actually considered and discussed? Do you want to take that one, Chris?
I can do. So I don't have that information off the top of my head, but I will be able to delve into the archives to get that detail. So if I could request that whoever's asked that question drops us an email to remind us of that question, then I will happily dig out the archives and have a look at exactly what has been considered in terms of brownfield in the past.
Brilliant, thank you.
Sorry, Joe. Another quick comment on brownfield sites. It is preferable to use brownfield sites in preference to greenfield sites, and that's why it's very much a core component of our site identification process. One of the problems with using brownfield sites is just the lack of availability of it and the competition with other land uses. So it's not just renewable energy that is looking to prioritise the use of brownfield sites. It is housing, it is all other forms of development which also want to seek to make benefit of brownfield sites. And as we've said before, one of the key starting point for us is finding sites that are close to the grid, and there are only a finite amount of brownfield sites that could be considered in this case. But as Chris says, we will be providing the full detail of the brownfield sites that have been considered, and we will be happy to send across the sites that have been considered already to date.
Thank you very much. probably back to Chris for this one. Will we see sheep grazing on this site? Has the farmer confirmed this, or is it just, as you say, an option?
It is confirmed, and it is included within the lease. So yeah, it's definitely the plan to include for sheep grazing.
Just to add on that, the sheep grazing is a key component of the delivery of the biodiversity net gain at this site based upon the current plan. So we will be introducing a kind of sensitive conservation grazing management regime, which is there to kind of maintain agricultural use, but also ensure that it's managed to deliver the maximum potential for biodiversity net gain.
Thank you very much. Next one's probably more comments rather than questions. Have you ever been at Whitnham Clumps? I don't know if anyone wants to respond to that.
I'll take that one, Joe. I went there myself when on one of the site visits that I went on. We've also, the landscape architects have also been at Whitnham Clumps and taken photographs and provided initial input, actually, that the view, ensuring that the view from Whitnham Clumps was maintained was one of the key reasons why the northern area of the site was discounted. I think that was shown on the plan that Chris presented at the beginning of the site. So it has been a key consideration. Obviously, Whitnham Clumps is in the area of outstanding natural beauty, and whilst the views from this location towards the site are distant, they are important. And we feel that the plan to kind of reinstate the historic hedgerows at the site does offer the opportunity to break up the potential for views from the site. And you will see when we will be preparing photo montages which show the view from this site. And when you see those, the extent of the kind of natural vegetation in the area is quite extensive, and the topography, the views from Whitnham Clumps aren't prominent at all, really, but we're doing our absolute best to make sure that the small area that is visible, the potential visual impact is broken up by the introduction of suitably placed screening.
Thank you very much. Next one is a comment, there are no benefits. I don't know if anybody wants to respond, but that is noted. So if you've typed it in, it will be stored for us. So thank you for that. Another one for Alexis. I'm not sure what this is in response to, I'm afraid. This is not acceptable, I'm afraid, when it comes to the parish council situation.
Sorry, just to add on that, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know the ins and outs of the local politics, so I can't presume to make comments on behalf of the local parish councillors. I would hope that they would be willing to take on board your comments and feedback in relation to this scheme. And if not, I could only advise you to escalate things to your ward member or at a higher political level. But if there's anything else that I can do to resolve your queries, then please let me know.
Thank you. Why have you not consulted the parish council?
We have been talking with the parish council. We'll be attending a parish council meeting later in the month, and also other parish councils as well. So we're very well engaged.
Thank you for that. Clifton Hampden and Burcot is a single community. It is currently happily divided only by fields. You are suggesting dividing it with a much more significant barrier.
I'll pick that one up, Joe, if you like. So I think if I was to draw a line between Burcot and Clifton Hampden, the proposed Burcot farm PV development wouldn't intersect the two. And of course, we're not encroaching on any existing footpath at all. So I don't think we are doing anything there to sort of inhibit the access between the villages of Burcot and Clifton Hampden whatsoever.
Thank you very much. It's all very well creating hedgerows for mammal movement within the site, but the fences will not allow nature movement into natural movement, I think, into the site.
Yeah, the fences will be designed to enable permeability. This is a standard feature that's integrated at most solar farm developments, certainly ours. So we will be taking the advice on the ecologists on that matter to ensure that species can move throughout the site.
Thank you. What route will the proposed underground cable take?
Yep, so the proposed underground cable will take an agricultural route to the east of the Baldens, there or thereabouts.
Thank you. Apologies. Sorry, I'm trying to sort out all these questions. Our parish already has one proposed development using very special circumstances. Is there a limit to how many very special circumstances a parish can have?
I think the answer to that is that each scheme will be considered on its own merits, really. So that's the kind of basis of all decision making within the planning application determination process. So I don't think I can really add anything further to that, really.
Thank you. What I'm hearing is that you choose a site for ease of link up to the power grid for you. No real consideration of brownfield sites. I find it very hard to believe that there is no brownfield at Cowley.
So I'll pick that one up, Joe. So I think the grid connectivity is the sort of the first point on our site selection criteria. There are many more. I would imagine there are some brownfield sites around Cowley. However, those brownfield sites probably aren't of the size that we require, first and foremost. And secondly, they're probably earmarked for commercial developments, which is much more valuable than solar PV developments. So the landowners of those brownfield sites won't be interested in progressing with a solar development, unfortunately.
Thank you. Are you aware where the Thames and lakes are in relation to this site?
Yes, I think that's probably a question following on from the other question about water bodies. So yeah, that's fully taken into account as part of the assessment of the potential for ecological impact.
Thank you. On how many of your solar farms are sheep grazing at present? Who wants to take that one?
Quite a few, actually. I was actually on one on Wednesday, and the farmer was lambing, so it was being very well used for sheep grazing. It's a great way to manage the site, not only for keeping the grass down, but also, as Alexis has mentioned earlier, for as part of a biodiversity managed area of land for a gain in that respect. So yes, it's something we do like to see on our sites.
Thank you, Steve. Going back to the deer that we were talking about earlier, we've got a couple more questions. What exactly happens to the existing deer on site?
I think I guess they must graze on other areas. I don't think that we would have any the potential for any kind of population scale impacts on the deer in the local area, and they're not a protected species that requires special consideration as part of the planning process.
Thank you. And the next comment is on deer. There are a lot of deer in that field. I see them every day.
I'm not sure I have anything further to add on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another question on the sites, the brownfield sites we've already considered. This has just been asked again, so I don't know if we've got anything more we can add to that.
Yeah, I mean, again, if if that person would like to drop us an email, it will come through to me, and I will look at the through the archives, and I'll dig out the brownfield sites that we have considered in South Oxfordshire.
That's great, thank you. The County Council, as the Highway Authority, has plans for significant road improvements in and near to the site and beyond. Has this been included in your considerations?
It has indeed, yeah. We have noted the area of safeguarded land to the west of the site for the Clifton Hampden bypass, and we have engaged with consultees at Oxford County Council to make sure that our schemes don't prejudice each other, really. So yeah, we have taken it into account.
Thank you very much. Could the margins include a public footpath and a new cycle route linking Burcot to Clifton Hampden?
Personally, I think that sounds like a very nice idea. There's certainly some complexities around doing that. I suppose certainly in terms of its permanence versus the temporary nature of the solar sites, and also in terms of the ongoing responsibility for maintenance. But I do like that idea, so that is something we'll take away and give some consideration to.
Thank you very much. Have you only approached private landowners? Have you engaged with South Oxfordshire District Council directly to utilise land that they own?
Yep, so we engage directly with local authorities all the time. Public Power Solutions aren't just a developer, we're also a consultant to the public sector. I'm not sure South Oxfordshire have been in touch for our services directly. I've worked with Oxford City Council, but we would welcome to work with South Oxfordshire District Council, and certainly if within our site search process that any local authority land appears, we do sort of make special measures to get in touch with those organisations specifically, given our links to public sector as well.
Thanks very much, Chris. Next one's for me, I think. Are our questions being vetted? I have been unable to send another question. I am not deleting any questions, so I have about 45 questions waiting to be asked, so apologies if you're still waiting for your question to be asked, but I can assure you they will all get an answer for you this evening. And I think somebody's also asking for a transcript. I can arrange that. We do everything gets recorded that's being typed in. All of your questions, any answers that I've typed into you are all recorded. So if you wanted to email us, I can arrange for that to be sent to you. That's no problem at all. So apologies if I haven't got to you yet, but I will. Okay, so the next one, the Farrant family already have income from the industrial site. How much do they need? Probably more of a comment, unless anybody has anything to say to that.
Can't comment on the personal financial situation of individuals, no.
Okay, so next one is about the questions. I've just answered that one. So as I said, they will be available if anybody wants them. How can badgers get more consideration than the residents of Croft Cottages?
I wouldn't say they do. I think we've been to speak to the residents of Croft Cottages in person already. There is also the opportunity for the residents of Croft Cottage to come back to us with feedback, either during the session via the feedback forms, or if they want to drop us an email as well, then one of the team will personally pick that up. So we do welcome engagement from anybody, particularly those who are sort of most affected by the development.
Thank you very much. Another question on why South Oxfordshire when you are supposedly national?
Why South Oxfordshire? Because we determined that there's there is grid capacity in the South Oxfordshire area, and frankly, if it wasn't us who found that grid capacity, it would be another developer. So I mean, South Oxfordshire is just one area of the country that we searched for potential sites.
Thank you very much. Next question is on this recording. Will you also communicate the full list of all questions you've received, as well as your consolidated written answers, so we can all benefit from our neighbours' thoughts about what you've presented today, and this information can be shared with other residents who haven't been able to attend? So yeah, as I mentioned, the questions are available if you'd like them. And this Q&A session is also being recorded, and it will be available to view or download. So everything is available to you to share with your neighbours.
And also, if the neighbours do want to get in touch directly via the email address, then they can do, and it will go to one of the team to answer. I've answered about 100 questions this week already directly, so I'm happy to field anything at all.
Thank you very much. Next one, you have mentioned surface water and flood control. Can you provide more details on these?
Yeah, the detail will be finalised once the layout has been finalised, which has not occurred yet. The planning application will be supported with a flood risk assessment and a surface water management and drainage strategy. We do not anticipate any problems in managing surface water runoff effectively at this location, and I'll be happy to share further details as and when they're available, so feel free to get in contact.
Thank you very much. Going back to the deer again, there are deer there. I've seen them regularly and they interfere with my roses daily. This is why you have a public consultation to explain what the situation is actually on the ground. There are also pheasant migrations through this area.
Thanks very much for the comment. I will certainly make sure to raise that with our ecological consultants, and they will take the presence of those species into account as part of their assessment.
Thank you very much. Why are the trees not all shown on your plans?
We have used quite high level plans at the minute, and we are aware of trees on the site. They have been surveyed by a topographic survey, and I think I've explained already that we are doing detailed surveys of the trees and putting in place to make sure that we put in place suitable measures to ensure that they're not affected by the construction phase of the development, so they will be fully taken into account.
Thank you very much. Do you accept this site is bigger than Berensfield?
Yes, I certainly accept that this site is bigger than the site at Berensfield, which is I believe called Wally Corner, and is situated on the closed landfill site there. That site, I believe, is approximately it's got a power output of approximately 5 megawatts. In terms of power output, yeah, the site at Burcot is 10 times that. However, in terms of area, the area is certainly not 10 times, because obviously there have been technological improvements in terms of panel density over that time, and also as Wally Corner was a former landfill as well, there's sort of additional spacing between the rows to take into account the sort of the existing sort of leachate infrastructure on the site. So yeah, in terms of power consumption, 10 times bigger, Burcot. However, not in terms of size. I could do some calculations though. If you want to email directly to ask about that, I'll have to do some calculations to give a sort of comparison in physical area.
Thank you very much. Steve, if I can ask you to answer the next one. I think it's responding to a previous question, but you will not allow us to speak. That is not a conversation.
Yeah, I think we have explained previously the extent we've gone to contact people, and the current constraints that we're under in terms of the the teams that we've got here. Again, we're more than happy to have a conversation, if via email, via phone. That I think that offer has already been made, and I'd just reiterate that.
Thank you. Another question. Have you ever been to Clifton Hampden cricket site? You will ruin its view.
I'm definitely going to take that one, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big cricket fan. Yeah, play a bit of club cricket myself. So yeah, fully support Clifton Hampden Cricket Club. I mean, the players should certainly be keeping their eyes on ball, but a potential beneficiary of the community fund, maybe.
Just to add a bit more on that, we did select, one of the reasons that we selected the first viewpoint in the photo montage that we've presented this evening was to show the view from the public footpath, which is also just a little bit closer to the solar farm than the cricket ground. I appreciate that it might have been quite difficult to see that photo montage as part of this presentation, so you will be able to download the slides. So and I can send a high resolution copy to anybody that's interested if they want to see how that view would be impacted by the proposal.
Thank you. You seem to think views from roads are more important than our houses.
We have engaged the landscape architects to appraise and consider the views from all sensitive receptors, so that includes a range of different uses and development within the area. So I hope that we will consider that, but again, we'll be more than happy to take into account any specific comments or concerns regarding views. We have had some people send through some photographs, and we're more than happy to have a look, appraise those, and see what we can do, really. So do please feel free to get in contact with us. We can't, you know, we're more than happy to take on board all comments.
Thank you very much. Another comment, I know brownfield sites, we need to look harder. Does anybody want to comment back to that?
I'm not quite sure on the context of the question exactly. I mean, in terms of look harder, in terms of the development is harder, I would disagree.
I think we need to look harder.
We need to look harder.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, I completely agree that the brownfield sites, you know, do have some significant benefits for solar development, and we would happily take the opportunity to develop on brownfield if it was there. It's not.
Okay, next question. You could have engaged sooner, you chose not to do so.
I think we've engaged early on in the process. We've engaged prior to firming up plans, prior to a planning application, and we've tried to balance that out with providing a level of detail that people can really comment on. So I think we've tried to balance that level of detail, getting it together with engaging early on in the process to give people a real chance to input and to shape the proposal.
Thank you very much. How many of your applications have been turned down? You want to take that one, Steve?
Planning, I'm guessing planning applications. We take the planning applications that we've submitted, we've been very successful. So we've taken probably all of them through the process. So yeah, we've got, and that's why we do this early consultation to ensure that we've got that kind of community buy-in and understanding and chance to shape the proposal.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure who was talking about vehicle movements previously. Next comment is, you are dodging the question, how many vehicle movements? Does anybody want to respond to that one?
I don't think vehicle movements have yet been conclusively defined, but they will certainly be confirmed by the time that we submit the request for the EIA screening and scoping opinion, so they will be fully set out then. Just to emphasise as well that the highways movements relate to the consultation, to the construction phase only. and this site does benefit from access from the strategic highways network, so we would not anticipate that the alteration to traffic movements at this site in relation to the construction and decommissioning phases would be beyond the capacity of the highways network to handle. So we don't anticipate any significant highways issues at this location.
Okay, thank you. Another comment, rubbish consultation, we cannot say anything. Again, apologies, the functionality isn't available on the type of meeting that we've arranged. We chose this because we sent out over 2,000 invitations. We wanted to ensure that everybody that was invited had an opportunity to attend. Steve, did you want to add anything?
No, I think again to just reiterate, Joe, that you've highlighted, we have made real efforts to engage and to contact local people. We are constrained by obviously the current situation in the portal that we're using, but again, we have other methods of communication. People are free to email, to call, and to get in contact in various ways. So we're here ready to hear the views of local residents.
Thank you. If I can stay with you, would you support a plan to have a massive solar park installed in your own personal backyard?
I think I'd support a plan to sensitively site a large-scale solar facility. I see clean green energy as a real bonus and a dire need. We mentioned the climate change emergency that we're in. The move to electrified transport, the move to electrified heating is going to demand an increasing level of clean electricity, and I think solar is a great neighbour. We've already talked about the low levels of noise, the ability to be screened, the biodiversity improvements, the community benefits. So I think on that score, solar can be a great neighbour.
Thank you, Steve. Next question, not answered on how many are on the call. I can say that we had about just over 60 people registered for this evening. So it's around 60. It's getting a bit less as the evening goes on. Okay, you're here to take our disembodied comments, yes, but we're actual people with homes here. There's a difference.
I can understand fully how how frustrating the communication can be on this kind of portal. But again, I think we just reiterate that comments can be made in a number of ways. We're making efforts to do early consultation with the local community and try and engaging as many people as possible. So again, we welcome the views of anybody, and we encourage people to talk about the scheme and make their views known to us.
Thank you very much. Culham Science Centre is down the road and has large areas of roofing and car parks that could be covered with PV panels. Have you thought of approaching UK AEA, who own that site, to discuss renting their roofs?
So I do like the idea around solar canopies of car parks. Unfortunately, they're about 4 times more expensive than installing on ground-mounted arrangements, and that does make them quite unviable unless you've got some particularly good circumstances. And as I mentioned earlier as well, that there are particular difficulties in agreeing third-party arrangements with central government organisations. And I think an agreement with UK AEA isn't going to be viable, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. The A415 from the west goes straight through the conservation area.
Okay, thank you for that comment, and we will feed that back to the consultant undertaking the transport management plan.
Okay, I think another comment on that. So when you say you avoid the conservation area with traffic, you are promising not to break the law. It's no concession at all.
Yeah, we can also take into account the highways impacts during the construction phase as part of the heritage impact assessment. So we can make sure that the potential impacts on the conservation area are taken into account in relation to this impact.
Thank you very much. Steve, can we go back to you for the next one? What made you think a bank holiday was a good day to consult?
It's what we found was we did some thinking about how best to engage and what time and what day. Actually, Thursday evenings tend to be a time when people are available, and that seemed like the optimal time. Obviously, there is a bank holiday in front of us. It's not a bank holiday today, but we did think today would be an optimal time to engage with people. But again, we're not limited to a couple of hours on a Thursday evening in terms of the communication here. We will be available, and like I said previously, this is the beginning of the conversation. If there are comments that people want to make, there are a variety of ways to do that, and again, encourage people to have a chat with each other and make their views known to us.
Thanks, Steve. Staying with you, I hear what you're saying about listening to local residents' views and questions one at a time and then taking the comments away. But this Teams format isn't anything like a large group of local residents sitting in a room and collectively explaining to you how we feel about these proposals. Yeah,
I think I've done consultations previously, and it's been sitting down with local residents in a hall or other kind of venue is much better in terms of communication. But unfortunately, this is I think this is the system we have at the minute. And again, I'd reiterate there are a variety of ways to get in contact. So we would encourage people to use those different ways to make their views known.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I was on mute there. 5,200 new houses planned on Greenbelt for this area. Why not put solar panels on new houses, not the few remaining green fields? This is industrial coalescence.
So personally, I think that it should actually be a regulation that new houses should be built with solar PV on them. 5,200 houses with solar PV on the roofs is going to be about a third of the power capacity that's proposed at Burcot. So I mean, in terms of space, it's not particularly efficient to put solar PV on domestic roofs. And also with solar PV on domestic roofs as well, there's very little power actually goes out to the grid, and there still is a significant requirement for clean energy to be put onto the grid for consumption by the wider population. So I think there's actually space for both. I think there's space for new build houses to have rooftop solar PV. I also think there's a requirement for large scale renewable energy developments as well.
Thank you very much. So the next one is, I think, a comment to a previous question. So you think to build South Oxfordshire District Council will vary their proposals at Culham and Burcot because of your proposals, Dream On. I don't know if we want to respond to that.
I can just clarify that no, we don't think that, and we would expect SODC to consider our application in the context of those allocated sites. So we do think that everything will be considered.
Great, thank you. To add to the question about cumulative development, have you also considered the development of 1,700 homes at Berensfield, less than a mile to the east, and the new town at Culham, 3,500 houses, less than a mile to the west of Clifton Hampden?
Yeah, we have considered those development proposals. I think the thing that I would emphasise again is that solar farm development is not a permanent form of development. It is only for a temporary duration, and it is permitted via a temporary permission. So this is written into the permission, and the restoration of the site will be required. Also, the panels themselves are maximum of 2.8 meters high, so we are talking about very different forms of development with different types of impacts, but the way that they will interact with each other will be considered as part of the detailed planning submission.
Thank you very much. Next question. The old airfield site is privately owned. Was this considered, as this surely would also give nearby access to main grid connection at Culham Science Centre?
We would have to check through the archives to see, you know, when we engaged with that particular landowner. I mean, in terms of accessing the grid connection at Culham Science Centre, I mean, I've been involved in a lot of proposals to undertake what we'd call a private wire connection before to a major consumer, and they are incredibly large, complex agreements, which often fall down for a variety of reasons. So I think a connection into Culham is going to be a drawn out bureaucratic affair, which really isn't viable.
Okay, thank you. Have you considered forming partnerships with SODC and Culham to create not-for-profit projects?
It's an interesting suggestion. You know, we're always open to forming partnerships with like-minded organisations to deliver renewable energy projects. So maybe we'll take that one away.
Okay, thank you. Alexis, if we come back to you again on the DEAR, still no comment on existing DEAR. They are there daily.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, thanks for the comments about the deer being on the site, and we will take that into consideration. I'll pass that information on to the ecological consultants for them to assess.
Thank you. Okay, how will a solar farm mitigate the flooding that occurs near Croft Cottages right now? More concrete seems like it will cause even more issues.
I'd be very interested if that person would like to send through some of the detail of the flooding events that they experience. I will certainly pass that on to our flood risk and surface water management consultant and try and see what they can do. You don't know, there might be opportunities to actually improve the management of surface water at this site as part of the scheme, and I have already passed on some details that someone else raised of a surface water flooding issue to the south of the highway at this location. I've already passed that on to our consultant, and I will be happy to pass on any other information that people would like to send through, so feel free.
That's great, thank you very much. If there are really no brownfield sites or sites not in the Greenbelt in South Oxfordshire, then why not go elsewhere?
I think that there is a need for this form of development across the country, and national planning practice guidance does emphasise that there's a responsibility on all communities really to maximise the potential opportunities for the delivery of renewable electricity, and I think that this is one of the few opportunities that exists across the country. Grid constraints are a big barrier to deployment at the moment, and obviously we do have quite a regulated system of land management and planning system, and the sites are scarce, and I think we've emphasised that we have gone through a detailed site selection process, and we will be fully itemising the factors that have been considered, which we think justifies the development in this location.
Okay, thank you very much. You say close to the grid. How far does the cable run to Cowley?
It's about 7.5 kilometres. So the site selection process has taken into account an area that has a radius greater than that.
Okay, thank you. The whole site will be visible from the clumps. Is that for you, Alexis?
Yeah, the landscape architects will be taking that into account, but yeah, thanks for that comment, and again, I'm happy to share the existing photography that we have taken from that site, or with anybody that's interested.
That's great, thank you. How can construction traffic access the site via Burcot Farm without using Burcot Farm Lane?
Yeah, I can pick up this one. So, so there is an informal access already off to the site from the A415. So we're going to be utilising that.
Thank you very much. Will you be engaging with Dorchester Parish Council, please?
More than happy if there is if there's a Dorchester Parish Council meeting, more than happy to engage. So I'd ask the person who sent that comment just to give us some further details, and we can follow that up.
Okay, thank you. What about the views from the cycle path, footpath used every day between the villages along the A415? I think it says 415. I don't know which 415. Why no photos from there?
We can provide some photographs of views from that location. There's already a hedgerow along the southern boundary of the site, which we will be enhancing with additional planting to make sure that there's a continuous screening. But yeah, we can certainly take some photographs from users of the for non-motorised users of the highway at that location to make sure that we've fully appraised the impact. So yeah, thanks for that.
That's great, thank you very much. Another one for you, Alexis. Fences are only permeable for small mammals.
Yes, they will only be permeable for small mammals, or the max, yeah, the smaller mammals, smaller than deer.
Okay, thank you. Next one, I think it's a comment. Well done, recognising a range of different views, both positive and negative. Look forward to further consultation and meetings to see if, how, when this scheme may progress. Thank you very much for that comment. Next question, can a solar farm be built on an ex-landfill? There is a lot of ex-landfill in extremely close proximity to Didcot B.
Yeah, solar farm can be built on ex-landfill, and PPS has a track record of delivering successful schemes on landfill. I think previously mentioned that solar farm does have the benefit of being able to be constructed in a manner that doesn't cause any ground intrusion. And as part of our site selection process, we consider all land that has the potential to develop solar. So any ex and former landfill sites would have been captured as part of that process, really, and none were suitable to deliver a solar farm within the area of search.
Thank you very much. Next one, why are some of my questions and comments skipped and disappeared? The only way to communicate with you seems throughout the online system, and it seems very intransparent. So hopefully whoever that's come from, I've now got to your question. Apologies if you can't see your question straight away. When you type it in, I do have to publish it so that it's everybody else can view it, and that we've had so many questions, it's just taken me a while to get through them. So sorry for the delay, and I'm sure we've now covered your question because they are all being looked at, and I'm reading out all of the comments, and as I said, you will have access to the record of all of these questions afterwards. So hopefully that answers that one. Okay, so it's a no to you having spoke to South Oxfordshire District Council. Somebody want to pick that up?
Well, I think it depends what it's about. So, of course, we've spoken to South Oxfordshire District Council via the pre-planning application. But if it's in the questions in relation, or the comment is in relation to speaking to South Oxfordshire District Council about potential land holdings, if South Oxfordshire District Council had a potential land holding that we thought was a viable opportunity for solar development, we absolutely would have got in touch with them.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, Oxfordshire 2050 strategic plan and evidence base identifies this area as not suitable for solar renewable energy installations. This plan was published recently.
It's not something that I'm aware of, but I'd be more than happy to look into that further. So thanks for that comment.
Okay, thank you very much. You mentioned when you knocked on doors that the site was suitable partly because it's being offered as a single parcel of land by one willing landowner rather than as multiple different parcels that would be more awkward to develop. To what extent have convenience aspects like this and the fact that a single wealthy landowner clearly wants this development to happen contributed to your view that Burcot is more suitable than, for example, a more awkward brownfield site or one comprising multiple separate parcels?
Thank you for that. I can take that, Joe. Thanks for the comment. This relates to a conversation on sites. Obviously, a single parcel in the development process adds to the deliverability of the scheme. I think that, as has been explained previously, the number of issues that contribute to this site being a good site for solar are much greater than that. So, you know, from a convenience perspective, I would say that there are many issues that contribute to this site being appropriate for solar development, and convenience doesn't really kind of weigh against those bigger issues in favour of appropriate solar development in this location.
Thank you very much. Okay, apart from the 12,500 per annum being an insignificant amount, I don't know if we've already covered this, I'll read it anyway. Will this not even increase over the years to keep up with the inflation? I'm pretty sure we've already answered this one. Oh, I'm sorry, there was an added part on about providing free energy as compensation, but I think we've done that one already. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, next one's just a comment. Great to hear that you'll share the Q&A. Thanks very much. You're very welcome. Thank you for being open and providing a meeting to ask questions. Next comment, the site is bigger than the village of Berensfield. Okay, whilst I have concerns about your plan, it is refreshing to have a meeting where we can ask any question about your plans for our parish. Thank you. You are welcome. Thank you very much. Next one, the photo montage is a joke. You will see a sea of solar panels. Did you want to take that one, Alexis?
Yeah, I can just add that the photo montages have been prepared in accordance with the relevant methodology. They are what's called verified photo montages, so they have been prepared in a certain way that is representative of the view from a kind of a human standing in that location, and everything's kind of been scaled appropriately, so there is a true representation of how the solar farm will look. So that's all I can add really on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Next comment, this has been a terrible year for many of us, and walking in the fields in our community has been the only saving grace. Never underestimate the distress and sleepless nights that you are causing by the desecration of our environment. Shameless greed, and the rest is a whitewash.
I think I can understand. We've obviously had a very difficult year, and I can fully understand that. I think what we're trying to promote here is a dialogue with local residents about a scheme that will deliver clean, green electricity to address the real impact of climate change that has key effects even now. So I can understand the feeling, and I would, I just highlight the way in which people can comment on this application, and please do feel free to get in touch and make your opinions known. We're trying to engage to make sure that the scheme does address those local concerns that have been raised tonight.
Thank you very much. Next question, can you not use some of the area that becomes available from dismantling the old Burcot coal power station? That really would be replacing fossil fuels with renewables.
So I can pick that one up actually, Joe, because we did identify Burcot as a potential area for solar development. It's about a year ago actually now. And I did actually go to site to meet one interested landowner on a site actually called Power Station Field, right next to the National Grid 400 kV substation. He was very interested in actually developing his site, not for renewables, but actually for commercial property, because there's an awful lot of commercial warehousing around there. We did have a good chat about potential development of solar, but actually particularly battery storage. I went back and had a further discussion with National Grid about grid connection, and surprisingly, there was no available capacity at the Burcot National Grid substation, so it wasn't a viable opportunity. So I think it just really goes to show that despite all that infrastructure, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a viable grid connection, because there are so many other embedded generators on the network that connect back to that site that are taking the available headroom.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. Next one, just to comment on the old airfield site, Culham number 1 site. This is allocated in the SODC local plan for more industrial employment, so it's not available for a solar park, although the roofs of these buildings might be rented for PV. So I think that's a comment on a previous question.
Yeah, so yeah, there are potential issues, as I mentioned before, with you know, leasing land from sort of central government organisations, particularly on sensitive sites such as that.
Okay, thank you. Next one, still no answer on Hammond on the call. Apologies, I thought I'd answered this. So it was around 62 at the beginning of the call. We're currently at 16 attendees. So sorry if I missed that earlier. Okay, next question. How have you estimated the value of good quality farmland?
We use the definitions that are provided in the National Planning Policy Framework, which refers to best and most versatile land being within categories 1, 2 and 3A. The only way to fully appreciate the value, the agricultural value of the land, is to get on site and survey it, and that's what we have done as part of our initial survey effort, and we have directed the panels to the areas with the lesser agricultural value on the site, and we have assessed the potential for the solar, we've assessed the opportunity for renewable energy development at sites with a lower agricultural land value, but most of the district within South Oxfordshire is good quality farmland, potentially within the best and most versatile category. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much. Okay, back to Chris. No answer on the length of the connection to Cowley. Can you pick that one up?
I can do, yep. Sorry, I thought I picked that one up earlier, but yeah, very happy to provide an answer on that again. So cable route back to the point of connection at Cowley local substation is approximately 7.5 kilometres cable route that runs to the east of the Baldens through agricultural land, and that is cable length is also taking into account, I suppose, the distance that we're detouring to go in the field boundaries around the area. The site selection process has taken into account a radius that is larger than that 7.5 kilometres from Cowley local substation.
Thank you very much. Next question. Will you consider putting your solar panels on all new builds?
I think, as has been mentioned previously, that I agree. I think a comment was maybe by Chris earlier. I support the installation of solar on all new builds in terms of the energy that will be required for heating and transport in years to come. But I think it doesn't necessarily address the question of the quantum of electricity that we will need in years to come. So we will need residential and building-based solar alongside land-based solar and other renewables, really to address the demand for renewable energy that we'll face in future.
Thank you very much, Steve. If you can answer the next one as well. If you knew there would be a maximum of 60 attendees, you could have used Teams instead of Teams Live. To ensure this could be an open discussion, asking persons to contact you on an individual basis for follow-up questions does not allow the local residents to discuss the thoughts and views they may have as a collective with you.
I think again, I'd reiterate that we've tried to throw the net out far and wide here. 2,000 letters to local residents, and advertising in local newspapers. I think what we've tried to do is have an online consultation, and we're over 2 hours in now to really give people a chance to air their views. We can take on board comments around different ways of doing it, but I'd reiterate, if people want to get in touch, call, email, that we're more than happy to have a chat and work through and understand what people are thinking about the scheme.
Thank you very much. Next couple are quite similar. So the first one, most of us will be dead in 45 years. That's 2 generations of children. And it may be considered temporary, however, it will outlive many of us in this meeting.
I think the form of development here, it is, we have said it's temporary. It is over an extended period, obviously over a 40-year period. But I think the key thing is that actually the impact here is minimal and reversible. So there will be a condition to ensure that the land returns back to its previous state at the end of the project.
Thank you very much. Next question, the Farrant family know all about the flooding at Croft Cottages. Do you talk to them?
Yes, we do. And I think that in terms of the flooding down towards the south of the proposed development, I think there may be an opportunity to improve that scenario really with the mitigation measures that are proposed from the flood water risk assessments and the surface drainage strategy.
Okay, thank you. I think the next comment is a follow-on. It's the area of the field directly next to number 4 Croft Cottages. I think we might have already been in touch with somebody there, so I'm sure we can pick that conversation up.
And I think what we can also do as well is just go back to our consultants in that area and really make sure that that area is thoroughly considered, and they are taking into account the correct baseline really.
That's great, thank you very much. We already have hydropower at Culham and the waste to power at Benson. This area is doing its bit.
Yeah, and also not forgetting the solar PV development at Wally Corner south of Berensfield as well.
Okay, you said earlier that you would access off Burcot Farm Lane. Can we just confirm?
I can clarify that. Yeah, certainly. So the construction access we're proposing from the A415, but for the operational access, so once that solar farm is live, operational access will be quite sporadic. You're probably talking about potentially a single transit van every month or two, or potentially not even that frequently. That operational access will be taken via the Burcot Farm Industrial Estate.
That's great, thank you for clarifying that. I think we're back to the flooding. So the area of Farrant's Field directly next to number 4 Croft Cottages does flood frequently, and on occasion in the past gets so serious the floodwater lapped the front step of number 4's front door. Sandbags were required. This development is unlikely to get any kind of support from Croft Cottages residents unless there are clear benefits to them for this change and a clear way for redress of any issues that arise from the development.
I think we're hearing quite a few things from the residents at Croft Cottages that we can do to improve our development, basically, that maybe assist them in some ways. So I think we'll be looking closely at certainly the flood impacts, and also as well, I think in terms of potential screening and distance from the properties as well. So we'll be taking a closer look at that in terms of our design.
That's great, thank you very much. I think we've covered this one as well. Can you disclose a full list of all sites assessed in the area?
Now, I believe that may well be covered within the site suitability assessment. Is that right, Alexis? Can I?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that will be available, that information.
Yeah, that will be available within the site selection process that will accompany the planning application.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Okay, one from a resident, thank you very much for the consultation tonight. I'm fully supportive of solar farm projects in principle, but have concerns regarding this project, mainly because it is in Greenbelt. I will be happy to fill in a feedback form. I will send you details of the contacts and meetings for Dorchester Parish Council. Thank you very much for that. Okay, next one. Thank you for addressing all the questions I've asked. It's been very informative. Thank you very much. Next one, please can we have public access to the perimeter outside the deer fencing? It could become a community asset.
I think that might well tie in as well to the earlier comment on the potential new cycle path and footpath linking Burcot and Clifton Hampden. So I think that yeah, there's definitely some food for thought for us there to see what we can do in that regard.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Another comment, I've seen no evidence that you are remotely interested in our comments. This is a whitewash. Thank you for that comment. Does anybody want to say anything back? Or
I think what we're trying to do here, and we are now over 2.5 hours in. We're trying to make sure that people's views are known. So I think that's from our perspective that is clear evidence. But again, if there are any comments, please feel free to get in contact.
Thank you very much. So if Didcot would have been the perfect site, but the grid connection was the problem, why not improve the grid connection? Yeah,
so the issues at Didcot were at the transmission level. So that's on National Grid's equipment, which is generally operating at 400 kV. So this is starting to become an issue really up and down the country now in terms of the constraints on the transmission network. And when you're looking at undertaking reinforcement works on the transmission network at that level, you're talking about multiple millions of pounds and I mean potentially timescales to complete the works of 5 to 6 years. And unfortunately that doesn't make sites viable. This is a subsidy-free scheme, and the margins are significantly tighter than when the feed-in tariff or the renewable obligation subsidies were available. And sites which have grid connections which require multiple millions of pounds worth of reinforcement just aren't viable.
Okay, thank you very much. There are substantial areas of land in this area not high grade or greenbelt. Try near Chalgrove and south of Marcham and Garford. Any comment on that one?
I think that everything will be covered off in the site selection and alternative site assessment report and information that will respond to the question.
Okay, thank you.
I think just having a very quick look at Marcham as well. Obviously you've got some pretty significant urban areas really in terms of sort of Abingdon and surrounding to get back to Cowley. So we've also got the A34 as well to cross. So there's some sort of significant sort of uplifts really in the grid connection costs. So that's going to be quite tricky, and I think probably borderline feasible really to get back to Cowley there.
Thank you very much for that. Next question, if we build solar on agricultural land, where does our food come from?
I think this question kind of highlights the need that we do have to balance kind of competing imperatives for our land use. South Oxfordshire has declared a climate and an ecological emergency. I think we've described that opportunities to develop renewable energy projects are scarce because of various other factors. We have looked at the potential to develop this site on areas of poorer quality agricultural land in accordance with planning practice guidance kind of policy siting criteria. So we have looked at that as part of our site search process. We do think that the development of this site will have the rural diversification benefits of furthering food production elsewhere on the land holding and sustaining the farming business there, which I think everybody's aware of the fact that the farming industry is facing particular economic challenges at the moment, and this is a means to provide a continuous kind of diversified income stream which will support food production across the wider site. And we've also got the ecological benefits as well to consider, which planning practice guidance does state that you know, if you are going to use agricultural land, you do have to improve the biodiversity, and that's something which we would very much agree with and are actively trying to deliver and really maximise at this site.
That's great, thank you very much. Okay, 6 months of construction traffic on a dangerous stretch of the A415 would be a serious problem for Burcot residents. Who would like to answer that one?
So yeah, we are undertaking a detailed construction traffic management plan, which will obviously take into account the type of road, the speed of the road, you know, the existing traffic movements on the road. Yeah, we don't believe that'll be a dangerous activity to enter the site from the A415.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Just a quick one to add to that, Joe. Yeah, the assessment that we've undertaken has included going out and getting the speed survey data as well, so it will be quite a detailed and fully informed survey. And obviously, if the highways consultants pick up anything that will cause a serious problem, then that would be something that we would very much take into account. And
that's great, thank you. Next question, probably back to Chris. So if some of your excuses not being a subsidised scheme, why not go with a scheme that is subsidised and better funded? The residents seem to be paying the price here.
So there isn't any subsidy available for solar PV at the moment. And I don't really think the industry wants to be subsidised either, actually. We want to deliver low cost power on a wholesale basis. I mean, there's lots of traditional energy forms which are quite carbon intensive actually are subsidised, you know, maybe not directly, but certainly through tax breaks. So we as the solar industry don't want to go down that route. We want viable sites that can deliver, you know, low cost clean energy and be profitable within themselves, really. You not have to rely on the bill payer to pick up the pieces with sort of additional costs.
Thank you very much. Next question, on your logic, anywhere on the greenbelt can be developed with anything by saying no other sites are possible. The greenbelt should be the last resort.
I think all I would add is that we do have to demonstrate the very special circumstances to demonstrate the acceptability or otherwise of this development proposal within the greenbelt, and I'm sure that this will be very much scrutinised by South Oxfordshire District Council as part of the planning balance exercise that they undertake.
That's great, thank you. That brought us to the end of the questions. So thank you very much for all the questions that you've asked. I hope you're happy that we've answered them all. Shall I hand back to you, Steve? You're on mute.
Thank you. Yes, well, I think, yeah, we've certainly been through a variety of questions tonight. As we said previously, there will be a questionnaire that's sent out, so we would appreciate if people would be able to fill that out and send that back. We appreciate your time tonight. and your input. And I think we've got some good ideas. We certainly started the dialogue here, and we do look forward to continuing that. So many thanks for your time. And
Steve, sorry, we have just had another question. Can we just answer it? Is that okay? So the industry doesn't want subsidy, but sites cost as a reason to dump this development on us. Don't know if we want to go back to that comment.
I think this tracks back to Chris's answer earlier. We want to be an industry that's subsidy free. Looking at this site in particular, we believe that it's got some really good arguments for it in terms of the way it can be developed. So we're really keen to move forward with that, and again get local views and engage to make the scheme as good as it can be and address those local concerns.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Final comment I've just had in. I'm really sorry to say this, as I'm sure you all believe that what you're proposing is in the best interest for the environment. That's only because you don't live here. There are badgers, deer, pheasants, and even shrews, not to mention rabbits, that use this area as their home. The development would be helpful to many humans, but extremely harmful to many animals.
I'm more than happy to provide some further information about the potential impacts and enhancements that can be delivered in respect to species that currently use the site, and some that don't, that might be encouraged to use the site as a result of our proposal. So if you'd like to get in contact with us, I can certainly share our preliminary thoughts on this matter, which will hopefully be a source of reassurance, I hope, but also would be interested to hear your thoughts and experiences of the species that you know to be using the site, and I can pass that on to the ecological consultants. But please do get in contact with me, and I'll be happy to share the feedback that we've had from the ecologists so far.
That's great, thank you. That's all the questions now.
Great. Okay, well, thank you everybody. Thanks for your time tonight, and I wish you all a good bank holiday weekend.